Hey guys, Manny back here with another video on the CascadeScents fragrance station, and this time it's for my top 5 most underrated fragrances. Now, one thing to note before we get on with this list is that the fragrances on this list are from my fragrance wardrobe alone. I basically looked at them all and thought to myself which ones are the most underrated throughout the fragrance community. So underrated, underappreciated, and overlooked, that is. I say overlooked, but this isn't a hidden gems video by any means. I would assume that most people within the dedicated fragrance community know most of these scents that I'm about to mention. Again, I just think these are ones that deserve a little bit more love. So we might as well get through the list. Starting at number 5, this one is Play by Givenchy.
Now, Play for me is no masterpiece whatsoever, and quite frankly, it's only an above average fragrance for me, but it still gets points for trying. I can't think of many other scents that use coffee as a main note that are without a doubt warm weather scents. Other than that coffee in the background though, Play is your borderline generic citrus fresh spicy with a weak ass base, so that's kind of where it falters. But while it is alive and well for the sooner part of 4 hours on my skin, it actually gets pretty good feedback from casual noses for whom it was made to please. So because this stuff gets me the positive feedback that's kind of comparable to my experience with other modern day generics, I'm just trying to figure out why it's kind of forgotten nowadays. Anyway, a big thanks to Givenchy and Justin Timberlake for introducing this iPod-like bottle to me and the rest of the world during the MySpace era. Moving on to number 4, we're talking Christian Dior's La Collection Privée. Here's the Floral Chypre Grimaud Tanja. Now, the House of Dior kind of describes Grimaud Tanja as if the color gray was a perfume, and I think that's really what they have here. The color gray is so brooding with darker and more rugged elements, yet also refreshing with lighter elements. So when you combine them, you get this stoic yet refreshing sophistication of a scent here, and it's straight up amazing. Still though, Grimaud Tanja just gets lost in the overall conversation amongst other seemingly staple Dior LCPs. But again, because I love its refreshing nature and versatility that much, I think that Grimaud Tanja deserves some love. Coming in at number 3 from the Jardin series by Hermés, here's Jardin en Mediteranée. Now, in my opinion, the Jardin series by Hermés is criminally overlooked by the majority of us within the FRAGCom, besides maybe its darling in Jardin sur le Nil. Now, don't get me wrong, Jardin sur le Nil is still by far my favorite from the line because of its fruity combination, which is undeniably infectious, but Jardin en Mediteranée is still easily my second place. It's a unique fig leaf driven DNA with some of my favorite notes like cedar and cypress. It's just a nice green and woody aquatic. Overall, I think that Jean-Claude Elena blended a home run for the late spring and summer months that won't have you smelling like anyone else. As a result, Jardin en Mediteranée is a worthy number 3 on this list of being overlooked and underrated. Now at number 2, here's another Chypre, it's Chanel's Pour Monsieur. Pour Monsieur has the distinction of being the only fragrance marketed for men that was debuted during Coco Chanel's lifetime. It has a very authentic lemon opening with a slightly spicy heart and the Chypre trademark oak moss base. But why is this fragrance so overlooked nowadays? Well, yeah, it smells kind of mature and dated to a certain extent, but so are half the Les Exclusifs if you ask me. Speaking of the Les Exclusifs, I think that if this was somehow marketed for women too, I really do believe that you can put this in one of their sexy presentations along with the rest of them. I think it's that good. So since we seemingly only honor Les Exclusifs as far as Chanel's more classic stuff, and since most of us are after the Allure Homme line or Bleu de Chanel only when it comes to the masculine stuff now, that's why Pour Monsieur by Chanel is number 2 on this list. Now before we get to my number 1, I have a couple honorable mentions for this list. Firstly, we have Baudelaire by Byredo. We're talking a unique leather and incense combination with some woods that are enough to keep me interested for the 8 to 10 hours that I get of it on my skin. It's also rather subdued projection wise and not as beastly as Tuscan leather or the fragrances that it has inspired, which I actually prefer out of a leather nowadays. If anything, I just wish that Baudelaire got more overall love from the rest of the FRAGCom for being a brave take on leather. Now the other honorable mention is Erolfa by Creed. Erolfa can't make the top 5 because its simplicity does not warrant its price, which I'll get to in a sec. But it's a really delicious citrus and melon scent with a salty ambergris base that doesn't last for more than 4 hours on my skin. Now I have mentioned other fragrances on this list with as little longevity as Erolfa's, but they're also not $395 MSRP for a 120 ml bottle. Because that is a little much, Erolfa being underrated or overlooked is kinda justified. Also, it's not as proper of a performer as Aventus or Green Irish Tweed, and it's not as flattering as Millésime Impériale on scent alone. Nevertheless, I myself love Erolfa's Seaside scent so much that it's worthy of being on this list as an honorable mention. Anyway, on to number 1. What do you know? It's also Creed. Here's Silver Mountain Water. We're talking a scent for me that is compliment-wise comparable to Millésime Impériale's level and only eclipsed by Aventus. Also, like Aventus, in no colder than a warmer winter day, I'd actually get on average of 7 to 8 hours of longevity. The tea and blackcurrant driven refreshing scent is also more at ease and not as fun as the ever projecting beastly pineapple of Aventus. So I think that Silver Mountain Water is even safer for work and daytime happenings throughout most of the year. But I also think that it's still flattering enough for nighttime and formal occasions as well. So with all of that considered, how does Silver Mountain Water not have the cult followings like Aventus or Green Irish Tweed? In closing, I'd say that Silver Mountain Water is not only worth the $395 US price tag, but again, it is without a doubt my most underrated, most underappreciated, and most overlooked scent, period. There it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed my video on my most underrated fragrances.
And there it is, guys. That about does it for my most underrated fragrances list. Do you agree or disagree with the contents of this list and its order? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, please tell me about the fragrances that you find to be underrated, underappreciated, or overlooked throughout your fragrance wardrobe. And yeah, I can't wait to hear from you. Please also give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet if you want to support more great fragrance content. And until then, thanks again for watching. Take care, guys. Peace out and bye. I'm actually a huge fan of Jacques Polge's concepts that honor the past but make it kind of contemporary, and you exactly get that here. It's a cheaper fragrance, of course, with the IFRA regulations on oak moss. You don't have any of that here.